Adriano had all the talent to be the best player in the world. However, due to a traumatic event in his life, Adriano's career sadly fell apart. So how did Adriano go from being a top talent that was set to win multiple Ballon d'Ors to someone who fell apart mentally and failed to live up to his high potential? Well, let's take a look at the emotional story of Adriano's career. Adriano was born on February 17th, 1982 in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Like many Brazilian footballers, Adriano was born and raised in the favelas of Brazil, which is a relatively poor environment that has a ton of crime, violence, and corruption. Simply put, Adriano grew up in poverty. Now, even though Adriano was growing up in a harsh environment, he did find an escape from it, and that was through football. He often played football in the streets and dirt pitches barefoot, and that definitely helped him hone his skills. He got so good at football that he was even scouted by Flamengo to join their academy, and after his family members pooled their money together, they could afford to send him to attend a school near the Flamengo training grounds. Adriano then knew that due to his family's sacrifices, he had to make it in the sport, so eventually he could repay his family and more in the future. Adriano had no doubts about making it though, because he said in the academy he was definitely better than the other kids, and also that he always had a ball on his feet and was put there by God, basically saying that God gave him the talent to be great at football. Then, by the age of 16, he broke into the Flamengo senior squad, but initially as a defender, since his coaches thought he was too big to play up front and would be better suited to be playing in the back line. However, in his first few appearances, the Flamengo coaches knew that his intimidating physical frame could be extremely beneficial up top, hence Adriano became a striker for the team. With the Flamengo senior squad in his debut season, Adriano scored 9 goals, and he also became one of the youngest ever national team debutants for Brazil, with him getting that call-up when he was just 18 years old. With Adriano's name slowly growing across the globe, European clubs started to take notice of the player who was deemed the next Ronaldo phenomenon. Therefore, it was only a matter of time that Inter Milan identified him and secured his signature. It also helped that Adriano's idol, Ronaldo, was on the team as well, meaning Adriano would have a great person to learn from. Ronaldo would end up being a pretty good mentor for Adriano, teaching him how to play and act on and off the pitch. Adriano would then impress his Inter teammates as well, and even the coach, because in the game against Real Madrid, Adriano was selected to play for Inter in his first season. Inter even won a free kick, and the coach wanted Adriano to take it over the other legendary players Inter Milan had. And with that free kick, Adriano banged it into the back of the net, sending the fans into a frenzy. However, in that first half of the season for Inter, Adriano didn't have that much of an impact. Obviously, Inter was a star-studded team, and he wasn't going to start over the legendary R9. Therefore, Adriano was sent on loan, where he would spend half a season at Fiorentina, getting a decent 6 goals and 1 assist in 15 games. Overall though, it wasn't the best, and Fiorentina was a poor team at the time. That's when during the summer transfer window, Inter Milan were eager to sign Parma's Fabio Cannavaro, a later Ballon d'Or winner and Italy's captain that lifted the World Cup in 2006. Initially though, Parma weren't willing to sell him. That's when Inter and Parma agreed on a deal where Inter would get Cannavaro, but Parma would get Adriano on a co-ownership deal, where Adriano would play for Parma for 2 seasons. So in Adriano's second and third year in Italy, he wouldn't be playing for Inter, but instead for Parma. At Adriano's new club, he formed a good partnership up front with Adrian Mutu, and those two were incredible together, with them having a good understanding of each other and how they played. They were both extremely different players as well, with Adriano being more of a bulldozer, while Mutu played with more elegance. Regardless, both Adriano and Mutu put Parma on their backs as well for the 2 seasons, with Adriano even bagging 23 goals in 37 Serie A games for Parma. With these two carrying Parma, clubs all over the world were taking notice, with Mutu being signed to Chelsea, and Inter Milan, realizing they might have accidentally let a goal machine slip through, decided that in January 2004, they were going to re-sign him, and they did for a fee of 23.4 million euros. For the remainder of the season, Adriano really showed that he turned from a boy into a man, with him featuring in almost every single Serie A and Coppa Italia game, making 21 appearances for the club, netting in 13 goals. This incredible boost from Adriano even helped Inter Milan secure a Champions League qualification spot, which the Inter Milan fans were incredibly grateful for. With Adriano bringing joy to the fans, the Inter faithful decided to give him a nickname, and that's when the Emperor came into fruition. Now this good form and luck would only continue for Adriano, because in the summer of 2004, he was called up to represent Brazil in the Copa America. Now Brazil called up a squad that was missing a ton of key players, like Cafu, Kaká, Ronaldinho, Roberto Carlos, Ronaldo Fenomeno, etc. Pretty much in the squad, Adriano was the biggest name on this list, and I would say he was probably the face of the team for the tournament. Real quick before we get on with the Copa America though, please remember to subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it and it means a lot, so thank you. And also if you guys can, follow my Twitter and Instagram, both at Nabuto, if you just want to hear my thoughts on football games, transfers, and overall just to get to know me more. So if you want to, feel free to hit me up with that follow. Thank you. Anyways, Adriano went beast mode at this tournament, with him scoring a hat-trick against Costa Rica in the group stages, got 2 goals and 1 assist in the quarterfinals against Mexico, and even got a goal against Uruguay in the semifinals. With Brazil winning those games, they were set to play Argentina in the Copa America final, their heated rivals. Throughout the game, it was very back and forth, with the score being tied 1-1. However, in the 87th minute, Argentina got the late lead in the match, and it seemed like they were destined to win the Copa America against this B Team Brazil squad. However, Adriano was still there, and saved Brazil in the dying seconds, scoring a goal and giving Brazil the chance to win the game on penalties, in which of course they did. Thanks to Adriano's clutch performance, he won himself the Golden Boot. But not only that, Brazil was officially crowned the best team in South America, giving Adriano one of the happiest days in his life. Adriano even stated in a post-match interview that this was the greatest moment in his his career, and that this title belongs to his father, who was his great friend in life, and also going on to say that without him, he is nothing. Now 9 days after Brazil won the Copa America, tragedy struck for Adriano. Adriano went back to Milan, and over there was when he received a call. And in that call, he was notified that his father, age 45, passed away because of a heart attack. Zanetti, the Inter Milan captain at the time, was present when Adriano got the call, and described what happened. Zanetti said, "I saw him in his room. He threw his phone and started screaming. You just can't imagine that kind of scream. I get goosebumps even to this day. Since that day, Muratti and myself watched over him as if he was our little brother. He kept on playing football, he scored goals and celebrated towards the sky, dedicating the goals to his father. However, nothing was the same. He could have been the best player ever, but we did not succeed in pulling him out of depression. And that is perhaps my biggest defeat in my career. It still hurts me. I was so powerless." Wow, those were some really powerful words from Zanetti. Now Zanetti wasn't wrong about Adriano continuing to score goals. In fact, in the season after his father's death, Adriano had his best season ever, with him netting 28 goals in all competitions. However, despite all of this, Adriano was not the same, and depression began taking a toll on the grieving superstar. The reason his form became amazing in that season was because he felt like he had to be unstoppable on the pitch, and that this was the only way that he could honor his father's death. Sadly though, this sort of mentally tough motivation was never gonna last, and the depression eventually caught up to Adriano. But it wasn't only the depression that took a toll on him, it was also addiction. You see, to deal with his father's death, Adriano developed a dependency on alcohol, and it wasn't long until this lifestyle began to have effects on Adriano's playstyle. With him getting drunk more often than not, he started to miss training, and even sometimes showed up drunk when he used to party all night and get no sleep. He said that drinking alcohol was the only type he ever felt happy. Additionally, his attitude became worse, and most of his work ethic was thrown out the window. With him not being able to get back to his former self, and only continued to get sucked in with his alcohol addiction and depression, he started to play for Inter Milan and Brazil less and less, even though he was called in for the 2006 World Cup, scoring 2 goals. After that though, in the 2006-07 season, he only managed to score 5 Serie A goals throughout the entire campaign. A couple years prior, Adriano had the world at his feet, and he was supposed to be the future best player in the world. But a couple years later, he no longer could stick it out in the Serie A. Adriano even spoke about this, saying, "After my father's death, my love for football was never the same. I was across the ocean in Italy, away from my family, and I couldn't cope with it. I just got so depressed, man. I started drinking a lot. I just didn't want to train. It had nothing to do with Inter. I just wanted to go home." Now, despite Inter Milan's efforts in covering for Adriano against the press, and even trying to stick by him, they thought it would be best to send Adriano back to his home country in Brazil and train with Sao Paulo. Shortly after, Inter Milan even agreed to loan the striker to the Brazilian club for the 2007-08 season, just to see whether Adriano could recover his form and focus on his football. Sadly, this did not go to plan, because Adriano was still skipping practice and not being focused at all. Regardless, his talent was still there, because despite his attitude problems and his mentality not being there, he scored 6 goals in the 10 games he featured in. Sadly, Sao Paulo didn't want to deal with Adriano, and weren't completely convinced by him for them to make a permanent signing, so they sent him back to Inter at the end of the season. However, when Adriano returned to Inter, things were different. Jose Mourinho was now in charge of the team in order to deliver a Champions League, and the old manager Mancini was now gone. Then, throughout the season, even though Adriano tried to focus more for the sake of Inter, he was simply not good enough anymore, only registering 3 goals and 3 assists in the 12 Serie A games he took a part in. Then, after going to Brazil to take part in World Cup qualifiers against Ecuador and Peru, he decided to stay in Brazil and not travel back to Milan. He even came out and said that he doesn't know how long he'll stay in Brazil, but he wants to rethink his career. Then, Inter were left with no choice but to cancel Adriano's contract 1 year early, since obviously Adriano had no interest in returning to them and playing European football. Jose Mourinho, known for being cruel and strict at times, was surprisingly sympathetic, with him essentially saying that the most important thing for Adriano is to be happy, and if staying in Brazil makes him happy, then so be it. Then, in May 2009, the club that started it all for Adriano, Flamengo, welcomed him back with open arms, and signed him on a 1-year contract. Then, out of nowhere, it seemed like Adriano discovered his love for the game again, because he went back to his amazing form. In the 30 games he played in the Brazilian League for Flamengo, he scored 19 goals and got 4 assists, eventually crowning himself as the top scorer of this campaign. Not only that, he helped Flamengo win the title as well, being the main reason why Flamengo won their first Brazilian Serie A trophy since 1992. However, in June 2010, a strange twist happened, and Adriano was willing to go back to European football and even signed a 3-year contract with Roma. Kind of fitting that the Emperor was finally in Rome. Get it? You see the vision? Never mind, that was a terrible joke, sorry. Anyways, this seemed like an attempt from Adriano to make a comeback in his career, but it failed miserably. In the Coppa Italia clash against Lazio, Adriano got injured and broke his right arm, and he was then granted permission to return to Brazil to continue his recovery. However, he stayed back in his home country longer than expected, again, and after missing a series of flights back to Italy and failing to turn up, Roma stated that his behavior was unprofessional and unacceptable, and his contract was terminated just after only 8 games and 7 months for the club. Roma and Adriano's gamble at a career in European football once again failed. Corinthians, the Brazilian club, were willing to give Adriano Adriano a chance, offering him a 1-year deal. Sadly, due to a serious Achilles tendon injury that kept him out for 6 months, and also a lack of interest in training with the club, Adriano was released by Corinthians a couple weeks before his contract was going to expire. Adriano's career was practically over at this point. Flamengo gave him another shot in August 2012, but he was released by this club in November of that same year. Atlético Paranaense, another Brazilian club, offered Adriano a deal in February 2014, but 2 months later he was also released. Around 2 years later, in January 2016, Miami United, not Inter Miami, but Miami United of the National Premier Soccer League, not even the MLS, signed him, but a few months later he left the Miami club and retired. Now Adriano's life after football is still pretty mysterious today. Some say he's lost all of his money and now is poor, but he owns a couple of mansions in Brazil, even selling one in the past. Some even said he joined a dangerous Brazilian gang in the favelas, but nobody can actually confirm whether he did or not, or whether he was just hanging out in a place where he came from. Not only that, in the Champions League final where Man City faced off against Inter Milan, ESPN invited Adriano to help them commentate during the final for the Brazilian audience, but he missed a direct flight from Rio de Janeiro to Istanbul because he went to 3 different parties the night before and got absolutely wasted. So I mean, it does kind of seem like Adriano was enjoying himself, I guess. Overall though, Adriano quite literally had the world at his feet, and some legendary players in the world of football even said that he had the potential to be the greatest player of all time. However, due to the traumatic experience of losing his father, his football career took a dramatic shift towards the worst, and now he'll forever be a what-if player. However, sometimes life gets in the way of things, and if it's true that he's happy now with his family back home in Brazil, and is at peace with how his career went, then so be it. In the eyes of many football fans around the world though, he'll forever be remembered as the Emperor. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please remember to subscribe to my channel, I would really appreciate it. Also, follow my Twitter and Instagram, the links are in my YouTube description. Last but not least, if you want to learn more about how the Moroccan national team shocked everybody at the 2022 World Cup, you definitely want to check out this video right here, you won't regret it.